YouTube. I'm live on YouTube. Ogxlye on YouTube. Uh, so I'm gonna be doing this YouTube thing more often, I guess, 'cause especially today since Facebook is just not available. And you know what I'm saying? I need to play back on YouTube. And I need to actually put more content on my YouTube anyway. So here we go. Shit.
It's one of the reasons we're getting the camera.
One of the reasons we're getting the
So
camera.
we can have more structured, more clear, more of a virtual classroom setting.
Right. Yeah, virtual classroom setting.
He's even gonna wear button-down shirts for you guys.
That rarely, sometimes.
No, we're gonna batch shoot.
Yeah.
You know what batch shooting is?
Tell me, babe.
It's when you shoot a bunch of content in the same day, but you change your shirt so it doesn't look like you did it all in the same day.
Oh.
Wardrobe.
Oh.
And we got the little clothing rack we can hang them up.
Oh.
It's about to get fancy.
Yeah.
On this channel.
They're gonna get fancy on this channel. I'm gonna be able to look back at these days and say, hey, dude, it was the time they were not fancy on this channel. You didn't have, like, you know what I'm saying, I don't know, props and so forth.
You get engagements, fucking like a big ass whiteboard behind you.
Oh yeah, all that shit.
That's where we could put the whiteboard right there. I think this should be your filming space, and we should plug up the lights right here, and have them facing you, and have the tripod right here.
I wanted to put a Morris flag back.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Get one.
That was my mind state. I don't know. Or is it red, black, and green on one side, more on the other side? That was my thinking. I am a Moore.
Yes.
I know who can more.
I'm gonna get a smart board.
Yeah, a smart board. Yeah, there you go.
And then we could project the notes. I can edit it like that. Project the notes board on one end and have it your face on the other end.
Mm-hmm.
Split screen.
Camera lighter.
I have it.
Yeah.
Where?
I don't know.
I don't think I do. Yeah, I don't. Nope.
This is the Tarika or Lodge Sufi Lodge. That's what it is. I get it now. I'm on the research and development of my Chris Gnostic Institute. The first recordings I put on here are talking about the Chris Gnostic Institute and the mission statement of the Chris Gnostic Institute, and my lighters in my background. I don't know how I got my background. I did that. You have something here in a minute. So we're talking about this Chris Gnostic Institute or Chris Gnosticism in the context of the North American tradition of Islam, as it describes itself moving through from antiquity into the current time, because the North American tradition of Islam describes itself without a birthday, that it had no birthday, and that it is an intrinsic aspect of nature, is how we describe it in Chris Gnostic terms. Chris Gnosticism meaning is the anointed gnosis, and we believe that the anointed gnosis is derived from the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, or that the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad are a product of this Chris Gnostic or this anointed gnosis. And the last revelation in relationship to it, to give a clarification, or last allegorical revelation, so, because, there's a book in which it derives its information from, or clarity from, or you can clarify this allegorical revelation. Um, yeah, research and development, and I'm afraid, but we're on the research and development aspect of these proposed conclusions uh, that comprise, or at least a hypothesis that comprise the theory,
Sorry.
and there's certain evidence, data that has been collected um, in relationship to coming to these hypotheses or deriving these hypotheses and presenting these conclusions derived from that, you know what I'm saying, or which are also derived from the hypotheses. It comprises the theory. So I don't know. I'm not as comfortable on YouTube. I don't know why as I am on Facebook. It doesn't really matter. It's the same. And matter of fact, I like the camera this way. You know what I'm saying? I like the more panoramic view in the background. Um, it's still the same. It's still the same fucking device in which I'm talking to. Still basic same ideas I'm talking to. You know, talking about. And if you know the same things I say in relationship to Facebook hold true here. That's really not about who's used this. It's more about not just getting the information out, but also it's about allowing me the opportunity to articulate it. So well, it's a new setting. I get that. And I guess that some level of perception, on some level of perception, it's registering in the feedback. The differences in between YouTube and Facebook and YouTube Live and Facebook Live. The energy is different. So therefore, I have to, adapt, acclimate, acclimate. Oh, acclimate! I love that word, acclimate. And in relation to it's a, I think it's a more acclimating is a more conscious adaptation. You know what I'm saying? And I apply that to, you know what I'm saying, the 23rd song, I lay down in green pastures. You know what I'm saying? That's acclamation to me, which is Lamid in the Alif Ba'ith, which is love, supreme understanding. So I kind of dig the correlations, that the affirmation, you have to acclimate to certain conditions. So anyway, as far as this, I'm establishing this thing I call the School of Medina within the Chris Gnostic Institute. And the Chris Gnostic Institute is the Chris Gnostic Institute for Institute of Holistic Technology. That's the whole title. Or night. So that's where we are right now. We're developing the overall philosophy. I talk about it, the 12-dimensional mind space, and how that's the cosmological aspect of the Chris Gnostic philosophy. And then there's, there's a two-part. There's a special part, cosmology, and there's a general part, cosmology, which is the psychological cosmology in relationship to, a theory of a-relativity, you know what I'm saying, of a-relevance, in relationship to the realm of relevance that we exist in, and the byproduct, which is irrelevance, which is the wave. The wave is the two-dimensional function, the event horizon that arises, a collection of information that arises in relationship to the transfer of information from the proto-fermion to the proto-boson. In the proto-boson, adhering to the fractal patterns that are found within the proto-wind. So these are the primary, and you have Ayin, which is the proto-boson, or what? Fermion, or what? And you got Soif, or the Sophia, which is the proto boson, or the tachyon. Yeah. So byproduct, which I was calling caloric waste, the byproduct of the matter that occurs as a result of, or that we call matter, that occurs as a result of the velocity of the maximum velocity of light being achieved, and the particle waste, which we call particle, or the particular waste that it leaves behind in relationship to this boson field that occurs as a result of gravitational lensing that collects these particles in different configurations, still based upon those fractal patterns that the tachyon has to adhere to derive from the wind. Yeah. So, and that creates this 12-dimensional holographic projection that we live in, or 9-dimensional holographic, the space, and then there's the mind that projects the space, and then there's the time, the temperatures and pressures that occur within this space, that create various conditions, and the force that's derived from that, or that working upon that information, we call entropy. Yeah. Nature, to a certain extent. I mean, the interaction of these forces are called nature. Yeah. These mathematically derived, and then there's, I guess, the one we call conscious force, which is also an aspect of just responses. At one point in time, I was watching Star Trek the other day. Responses to temperatures and pressures, and a universal. When they went to this thing called the Demon Planet, and it was an organic substance that had only known itself in relationship to the reaction instinct. Yeah. And I mean, there's a certain level of thought that's embedded in that instinct, but it's risen from risen into a certain consciousness and awareness, which becomes human awareness, human consciousness, or a proximity of it is the different manifestations of human consciousness. That's why the proto-wimp is mind, and the proto-boson is thought. Something without form taking form by way of its perception of what it thinks form should be, based upon it's a process, and that process is what we call thinking on a micro level, but on the universe is doing it on a macro level. So if that always makes sense to people who should, But you have this interface, which is the way the two-dimensional aspect. You have these two three-dimensional constructs derived from, you say a six-dimensional construct. That it is divided, or not even divided to say, because we won't say that. We want to say it's polarized in order to facilitate various functions. Okay, it's polarized in order to facilitate certain functions in manifesting its potential. Oh shit, yeah, manifesting its potential. That this mind conceives a thought that determines that it has endless potential, but that endless potential needs to have some type of parameters in order to make it productive. Meaning that this endless energy has to be expended efficiently in order to make its use have purpose, and so therefore it has to construct consequences for why it is that this, or for the consequences would be derived from the parameters set that this energy has to operate, or that this energy has to be expended within. So I don't know if that makes sense. Makes sense to me. I mean, I know it makes sense. I'm just saying, I don't know if it makes sense to everybody else. It could be like some gobbledygook, but I don't think so. So that's this 12-dimensional universe, but it's like broken into this, not broken again, something polarized or even compartmentalized into these various agencies in order to achieve a universal function. So you could go back to like these forces acting upon one another in order to again, the forces acting upon one another in order to achieve an outcome. And the outcome has to be awareness, greater awareness of the information, because I mean, that's if human beings weren't conscious, if we didn't exhibit this thing called consciousness, then these questions couldn't be asked, and they would then have no bearing, and then have no relevance, and there have no actual reasonable explanation. And the fact that they have a reasonable explanation in relationship to, Amit Goswami and a whole host of other, Jung and the collective unconsciousness and so forth and so on, and just in memetics, that this has to be Leonard Susskind's holographic principle. I mean, the fact that there's just an abundance of information that supports this as a, freaking mark, or whatever. Come on. There's an abundance of information that says the universe operates. I mean, the fact that we're able to project information like this over a vast, spooky entanglement at a distance. I mean, come on, bro. It's impossible to deny the fact that, one, this is a 12-dimensional hologram, a quantum hologram. To get more specific, it's a 12-dimensional quantum hologram. And that this is just an approximation of a pre-existing reality. So therefore, that's why I say a-relativity in relationship to, special a-relativity and then, general a-relativity, because that's the nature of the universe in which we live. It's unescapable that we are living in these, like, little, approximate, because even our interpretation of everything is an approximation, it's conceptualized. That we don't have a full perception of our reality and have a difficulty in actually expressing our reality in any other term, any literal terms. Our reality can only really be explained in conceptual terms. And because it can only be explained in conceptual terms, that means that we only have a conceptual perception of our reality, so therefore it is only, it's limited by our human physiology. That the reality in which we engage in is not the full scope of our reality. That our reality can't be ascertained through direct inference, or even through direct inference, or through sensory perception. That kinesthetic perception and indirect inference. Science, the science of study, and the science and the science of yoga as a whole, or the practice of yoga, because yoga is what enhances one's kinesthetic awareness or kinesthetic perception. So, and then the acuteness of extending from kinesthetic, implies that it is, because Raja Yoga, super learning, things like that. I mean, it's a whole bunch of projects that can show that too. That the natural way of that, so therefore yoga is the natural way in which man should worship. or get in tone or in tune with his universe. Because the only way in which man can best understand his universe, his reality, is via the methods that are enhanced by way of yoga, the practice of yoga and the study of yoga, allowing you to better understand the other scientific aspects of the universe. You know what I'm saying? I mean, all the neurology, all the all the medicine or medical studies and so forth and so on shows that yoga is a far more yogic practice and yogic study is a far more productive means of attaining um, natural balance, equilibrium, homostasis. I fucked it up. Homostasis with the environment is via the practice of yoga. You know what I'm saying? The religious practice of yoga. So you know what I'm saying? That's also an aspect of this Christostic Institute or a Christostic concept. And yes, it's still rooted in the North American tradition, and there's aspects of the North American tradition in which it's rooted in. But overall, Christnosticism is rooted in this idea of authentic religious practice and adapting authentic religious perspectives. And that is where, come back to the North American tradition of Islam as being an authentic means of perceiving um, our reality. What I'm saying, or God in relationship to our reality. That, all the science proves that the first, man and woman, all men and women of the modern era are derived from two sets of DNA, mitochondrial and chromosomal that came out of Africa. Came from a tribe out of Africa, which is in line with, not only the teachings of the Quran, but in line with the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, or clarified within the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So that and other aspects of these teachings have their root, like its perception of God. That God is a principle, which is also a Gnostic concept as well, and that man is self-created and autopsychous and things like that, which are both Gnostic Bleach-era concepts and concepts that are found in the North American tradition of Islam. So that's why, it's Christnostic, and that's why the subject of application of Christnosticism is Christnostic Islam, while the objective application is Christosology. I think I was explaining these things in the interim of like my earlier tapings and shit. But I'm gonna let this go because I want to smoke this joint, so forth and so on. Peace. Assalamu alaikum.